Close your eyes and let your breathing slow. Tonight we are going to travel back, far back, to a world blanketed in ice and silence, a world lit by pale moons and endless snow. This is the story of the Ice Age and the quiet, resilient lives that unfolded within it. Let yourself drift there now. Picture a wide, frozen valley stretching further than the eye can see. The wind moves gently over the snow, and above you, a sky heavy with stars watches over everything below. This world you're imagining existed during the Pleistocene epoch, a vast stretch of time that lasted from about 2.5 million years ago until roughly 11,700 years ago, when the ice slowly, gently began to retreat. For nearly all of that time, much of the northern part of our planet lay under enormous sheets of ice, some of them more than 2 miles thick, pressing down gently on the land like a heavy, quiet blanket, slowly settle into that image. Ice, thick and ancient, resting over the earth for thousands upon thousands of years. And yet, life did not disappear. It simply changed and adapted and grew a little warmer against the cold. Imagine now a herd moving slowly across the tundra. Great, shaggy shapes with long, curved tusks catch the low light. These are woolly mammoths, gentle giants who called this frozen world home. Beneath their coarse outer hair lay a soft, dense undercoat, and beneath that a thick layer of fat, sometimes almost 4 inches deep, that kept them warm through storms that would have frozen almost anything else. Let that image settle, a great warm creature, unbothered by the cold, moving unhurried through the snow. Follow them a little further, and you may see other shapes moving quietly at the edge of the tree line. Woolly rhinoceroses, built low and sturdy, use their broad, flattened horns to sweep snow aside, uncovering the frozen grasses beneath. Nothing rushed, nothing wasted, just slow, patient movements over and over, the same gentle motion, clearing a path to food beneath the white. Now let your mind drift toward the mouth of a cave, tucked into a rocky hillside. A soft, warm light flickers from within. Here humans of the Ice Age found shelter and safety. Inside, a small fire glows, casting long, gentle shadows on the stone walls. Fire meant more than warmth. It meant cooked food, protection from predators in the dark, and a soft place to gather at the end of a long, cold day. Imagine the quiet comfort of that firelight, the low crackle, the warmth reaching your skin. And if you look closely at the walls of some of these caves, even now, tens of thousands of years later, you would find paintings. Deep in caves like Lascaux, in what is now France, ancient hands used charcoal and ochre to paint horses, deer, and great aurochs, running silently across the stone. These paintings have rested undisturbed in the dark for over 17,000 years, patient and unchanged like the ice above them once was. Let your breathing slow further, matching the quiet, unhurried pace of this ancient world. Outside the cave, imagine the people of this time moving carefully across the snow, dressed not in loose furs, but in clothing that was carefully, thoughtfully sewn. Tiny needles, carved delicately from bone and ivory, allowed Ice Age people to stitch hides into fitted garments. Trapping warmth close to the body, this simple invention, this small, quiet act of sewing, may have been one of the reasons humans could move so far north, into some of the coldest places on Earth, and still feel, in some small way, safe and warm. Feel that same warmth now, settling gently over you, like a soft hide draped over tired shoulders. Further out on the tundra, imagine the ground beneath the snow, frozen and firm, connecting places that today are separated by wide seas. Because so much of the world's water was locked away in ice, sea levels were far lower than they are now. And a wide land bridge called Beringia gently connected Asia and North America. Across this quiet, frozen land, small groups of people and herds of animals slowly, patiently made their way into new, unfamiliar places, following food, following warmth, following each other. Let this slow migration settle into your mind, small footsteps, one after another, unhurried, moving gently across a frozen, connecting world. And beside these early humans, walking a little further back but drawing steadily closer over many generations, were wolves. Slowly, gently, over thousands of years, some of these wolves began to linger near human camps, drawn by warmth, by food, by companionship. This quiet, patient closeness marked the beginning of the bond between humans and dogs, one of the oldest friendships in the world, formed slowly beside these ancient fires. Above the tundra, beneath the ice, and around every quiet fire, the Ice Age world moved slowly and carefully and always with a kind of patient endurance. Nothing here was rushed. The ice did not hurry as it crept across the land, and it did not hurry as it slowly, gently retreated thousands of years later. Breathe in and let it out, slow and easy. We will continue this journey soon, deeper into this quiet, frozen world, but for now, simply rest here, in the stillness of the ancient snow. Let's continue drifting through this quiet, frozen world. The fire has settled now into soft, glowing embers, and outside, the night has grown deeper. Above the snow-covered valley, imagine a sky so clear, so dark, that every star seems close enough to touch. There were no cities then, no distant lights to dim the sky, just the pure, endless quiet of the stars watching over the ice below. Not far from this fire, imagine a different kind of shelter, one built not from branches or hides alone, but from something far larger. In places like what is now Ukraine and Russia, ancient people built round, sturdy homes using the bones and tusks of woolly mammoths. Great curved tusks arched together to form doorways, and heavy skulls and leg bones were stacked to build walls, strong enough to block the wind. Some of these homes stood for generations, a patient reminder that even in a world of ice, people found ways to build warmth and safety, piece by heavy piece. Rest in that image now, thick curved bones, arranged with care, holding back the cold wind outside. Further from the firelight, deeper into the shadowed edges of the forest, imagine another creature moving low and silent through the snow. This is Smilodon, the sabre-toothed cat, with long, curved canine teeth built for a powerful, careful bite. Despite their fearsome teeth, these cats moved carefully, patiently, stalking slowly rather than chasing far, saving their strength for the perfect, quiet moment. Let that patience settle into you now. Slow, deliberate, unhurried. And somewhere nearby, half hidden among fallen trees, rest a moment with an even larger shape. Giant ground sloths, some as large as elephants, moved slowly through the Ice Age world, using long claws to pull down branches and leaves, calm and unbothered by the cold around them. Nothing about their world required haste, only patience, and slow, steady movement, exactly like the pace of your own breathing right now. High in the rocky hills, imagine a deep, quiet cave, one already claimed by another Ice Age creature. Cave bears, larger than the bears of today, spent their winters here, curled deep in the stone, sleeping through the long, cold months in a peaceful, unbroken rest. Entire generations of cave bears returned to the same caves, year after year, leaving their bones resting gently in the stone for tens of thousands of years, undisturbed. Let that same deep, unbroken rest settle over you now. Out on the open tundra, picture one more gentle giant grazing quietly beneath the moonlight. The Irish elk, despite its name, lived far beyond Ireland, roaming across Europe and Asia. Its antlers could stretch over 12 feet from tip to tip, the largest antlers of any deer that has ever lived. Yet it moved through the grasses calmly, unbothered by their great weight, carrying them the way we carry our own quiet thoughts, present but never heavy enough to slow us down. And in this same frozen world, imagine that early humans were not entirely alone. Neanderthals, a close relative of modern humans, lived and hunted across this ice age landscape for thousands of years, well adapted to the cold with strong, sturdy bodies. In time, in certain places, these two kinds of humans met and lived close enough that today, most people outside of Africa carry a small, quiet trace of Neanderthal ancestry within them, a gentle reminder that connection, even across great differences, has always been part of this story. To hunt safely in this world, humans developed a clever, careful tool, the atlatl, a simple spear thrower carved from wood or bone. By extending the length and leverage of a throwing arm, it allowed a spear to fly further and strike harder, keeping hunters at a safer distance from the great, powerful animals they depended on. A small invention, but one more quiet step that helped humans move gently through such a demanding world. And finally, in certain far frozen corners of Siberia, the icy ground itself became a quiet keeper of memory. The permafrost, ground that remains frozen year-round, has preserved the bodies of woolly mammoths so completely that even now, thousands of years later, scientists have found their fur, their skin, and even the last meals resting still in their stomachs. The ice did not erase this world. It simply held it gently, patiently, in careful, frozen stillness. The way your own mind can now hold this story softly as you drift towards sleep. Breathe in slowly and let everything settle. Let's drift a little further into this quiet, ancient world. The night is at its deepest now, somewhere around 20,000 years ago, during what we call the last glacial maximum, the coldest point of the entire ice age, when the ice sheets reached their thickest, widest reach across the northern world. It was the deepest, stillest part of this long winter, and yet, all around, life continued, patient and unhurried. Not far from the fire, the woolly mammoths we imagined earlier shift quietly in their sleep. If you looked closely, you would notice their ears were small and their tails short, a careful, gentle design by nature, reducing the surface exposed to the biting cold, keeping precious warmth close to the body. And at the tip of each long trunk rested two small, finger-like points, delicate and precise, able to pluck a single blade of grass from beneath the snow as gently as picking up a single soft thread. Beyond the mammoths, across the wide, moonlit tundra, imagine a great herd moving slowly together, reindeer, their breath rising in soft white clouds. For the humans of this world, reindeer were something close to everything. Their meat provided food through the long winters. Their thick hides became tents and clothing. Their antlers and bones were carefully shaped into needles, tools, and small ornaments. Entire communities followed these gentle herds across the seasons, their lives moving in quiet rhythm with the reindeer's own slow migration. Back at the fire, imagine careful hands turning a small piece of stone or ivory over and over, shaping it slowly into a soft, rounded figure. Archaeologists call these small carved statues Venus figurines, gentle, rounded forms found across Ice Age Europe, some carved more than 25,000 years ago. No one knows for certain what they meant to the people who made them, only that someone long ago took quiet time by the fire to shape something small and lasting with their own two hands. Nearby, another sound drifts softly through the cave, not words but music. From a hollowed piece of bone, carefully pierced with small holes, comes a low, breathy note. These bone flutes, some crafted from the wing bones of swans or the ivory of mammoths, are among the oldest musical instruments ever found, resting quiet and forgotten in caves for over 40,000 years before being gently uncovered again. Imagine that same soft, low note drifting now through the still night air around you. Outside, above the cave, the sky begins to shimmer. Waves of green and pale violet light ripple slowly across the darkness, the aurora borealis dancing gently over the ice. During the Ice Age, with the world's magnetic and atmospheric conditions shaped differently than today, these lights may have shimmered often over the frozen north, a silent, glowing companion to the long winter nights. Let your mind rest in that soft, shifting light, colors drifting slowly, never still, never hurried. Far across the landscape, imagine enormous sheets of ice creeping forward, inch by inch, carrying huge boulders within them, frozen in place for centuries. As the ice slowly moved and later slowly melted, it left these massive stones resting in entirely new places, sometimes hundreds of miles from where they began. Geologists call these lonely stones glacial erratics, and many still rest quietly in fields and forests today, the last slow footprints of ice that has long since disappeared. The night settles further into stillness. The reindeer graze quietly beneath the shifting lights above. The mammoths sleep on, their small ears tucked close against the cold. And somewhere by the fire, a bone flute rests silent now, beside careful hands that have finally, gently, drifted off to sleep. Let's drift further still into this quiet, ancient world. Somewhere beyond the cave, the first pale light of dawn begins to touch the edge of the horizon, soft and gray, spreading slowly across the endless snow. Nothing rushes to meet it. The world simply, gently wakes. Out on the open steppe, imagine a small, tight circle forming in the pale light, shaggy, broad-shouldered shapes standing close together, facing outward. These are musk oxen, and this quiet circle is their oldest defense. Adults standing shoulder to shoulder, horns facing any danger, calves resting safely tucked within the center. Their long, thick coats, layered with a soft undercoat called kiviut, kept them warm enough to stand steady through the harshest winds, patient and unmoving, exactly as they had for thousands of years. A little further across the frozen grassland, imagine a smaller, more delicate creature picking its way through the snow. The saiga antelope, with its unusual, large, rounded nose, moved gently over the steppe in wide, careful herds. That curious nose, though strange to look at, served a quiet purpose, warming the icy air before it reached the lungs and filtering out the dust of the dry summer winds. A small, thoughtful design carried gently through generations. Beyond the saiga, imagine an even larger herd grazing slowly across the plain. Steppe bison, heavier and more thickly coated than the bison of today, moving together in unhurried numbers. For the humans who lived alongside them, these great herds meant survival through the coldest months. And evidence of their hunts, carefully preserved in stone and bone, still rests quietly in the ground in places across Europe, Asia, and North America, waiting patiently to be found. Follow the herd's path down toward a frozen river, its surface half open where the current runs strong beneath the ice. Here, imagine careful hands lowering a small hook, shaped patiently from bone, into the dark water below. Fishing was another quiet skill of this world. Small barbed hooks, carved slowly over many patient hours, allowed people to draw fish gently up through openings in the ice, adding a different, welcome kind of food to meals through the long winter. Further along, near a cluster of hide tents settled quietly into the landscape, imagine a toolmaker sitting cross-legged, striking one stone gently against another. Slowly, carefully, a smooth, symmetrical point begins to take shape. a technique so refined that similar tools, later named Clovis points by the people who found them thousands of years afterward, would spread quietly across an entire continent, carried by generations of careful, patient hands doing the same slow work. Nearby, imagine another small group kneeling beside a soft outcrop of red-orange earth, gently working loose small chunks of ochre, a natural pigment mined carefully from the ground. Ground into a fine powder and mixed with fat or water, this ochre became paint for the cave walls, color for the skin, a quiet, warming reddish glow carried gently from the earth itself into daily life. And though this long winter of the Ice Age stretched across thousands and thousands of years, it was not one unbroken season. Gently and gradually, the world passed through interglacials, quieter, warmer periods nestled between the coldest stretches when the ice retreated for a time and rivers ran a little more freely before the cold returned once more, slow and patient as it always was. The Ice Age breathed in its own way in and out over enormous stretches of time. Eventually, so gently that no single generation would have noticed the change, this long winter began to end. As the climate slowly warmed and the great ice sheets retreated toward the poles, many of the massive creatures we've imagined tonight, the mammoths, the woolly rhinoceroses, the giant sloths, slowly disappeared from the world, unable to adjust to a landscape changing. Faster than they could follow, their story did not end suddenly, but softly, over centuries, fading the way a long winter finally gives way to spring. The dawn light has grown a little brighter now, resting gently over the quiet steppe. The musk oxen still stand close together. The saiga graze on, unhurried. And somewhere back at the tents, the ochre has been carefully wrapped away, waiting patiently for its next quiet use. The morning has settled into a soft, pale afternoon now, the light stretching long and gentle across the snow. Somewhere at the edge of a rocky outcrop, a shape moves low through the frost-covered grass. Larger than the lions we know today, its coat pale and thick against the cold. This is the cave lion, one of the largest cats to ever walk the earth, and one that appears again and again on the walls of caves like Chauvet, painted with quiet care by the people who lived alongside it, watching it from a careful, respectful distance. Nearby, tucked low against a snowbank, imagine a small, quick shape shifting almost invisibly against the white ground. Certain animals of this world, like the Arctic fox and the snowshoe hare, carried a soft, seasonal secret in their fur, turning white through the long winter to blend gently into the snow, then shifting back to brown or gray as the brief summer returned. A slow, patient rhythm, changing with the seasons, the way the whole Ice Age world seemed to breathe in and out across the centuries. Back near the cave, imagine a hand pressed flat and still against the cool stone wall. Around it, a fine mist of ochre powder drifts softly through the air, blown gently through a hollow bone, leaving behind a soft outline the moment the hand is lifted away. These hand stencils, found in caves across the world, rest quietly on stone walls even now, tens of thousands of years later. A simple, gentle mark, left behind by someone who simply wanted to say, quietly, I was here. Deeper within that same cave, imagine a small ivory figure resting carefully in someone's palm, carved patiently over many long hours from a single mammoth tusk. This is the Lion Man, discovered in a cave called Holenstein Stadel, with the head of a cave lion resting upon a human form. Carved nearly 40,000 years ago, it remains one of the oldest pieces of figurative art ever found, proof that even in the coldest, quietest corners of this ancient world, imagination found space to grow. At the edge of a half-frozen river, imagine another patient hand shaping a long piece of antler into a slender, barbed point. These harpoons, carefully carved and fitted to wooden shafts, allowed Ice Age hunters to fish and to hunt seals along frozen coastlines, the barbed edges holding firm once they found their mark. A small, careful tool, shaped slowly by firelight, carried out gently into the cold morning air. Further out on the grassy plain, imagine one more great herd moving slowly beneath the pale sun. Aurochs, enormous wild cattle with long, curved horns, roaming freely across the Ice Age landscape. Standing taller at the shoulder than most cattle today, these quiet giants would, many thousands of years later, become the distant ancestors of the cattle raised gently on farms around the world. Let's drift a little further into this quiet, ancient world. Evening is settling gently over the landscape once more, the pale afternoon light softening into long violet shadows. Far to the east, in a deep, quiet cave in the Altai Mountains of Siberia, imagine another kind of human resting in the stillness. One we know today only through a single small finger bone and the quiet secrets held within it. These were the Denisovans, a close relative of both humans and Neanderthals, living gently in this cold world, leaving behind only the faintest, quietest trace, a soft whisper from deep within our shared story. Not far from where the Denisovans once rested, imagine an enormous shape moving through the dusk on impossibly long, powerful legs. The short-faced bear stood taller than any bear alive today, able to move in swift, easy strides across open ground, covering distance with a calm, effortless speed. Even among the giants of this world, it moved with an unhurried confidence, master of the wide, quiet spaces around it. Closer to a slow-moving river, imagine the quiet work of a creature building patiently in the fading light. The giant beaver, nearly the size of a small bear, gnawed steadily at the trees along the riverbank, its work slow and deliberate, each bite adding softly to a project built for its own sense of steady time, unrushed by the coming dark. Return once more to the mammoth herd, resting quietly for the night. At its center walks an older, steady matriarch, leading her family gently across the tundra, exactly as elephants do today. Young calves stay close to her side, learning patiently where the sweetest grasses rest beneath the snow, and which quiet paths lead safely to water. Knowledge passed softly from one generation to the next, carried the way this entire story has been carried gently forward through time. Beneath a rocky overhang nearby, imagine a small, careful gathering, a quiet human burial prepared with tenderness. The body rests wrapped gently in hide, red ochre sprinkled softly over the resting place, along with small, careful gifts, a carved bead, a polished tool, a shell carried from some distant shore. Even in this ancient, icy world, care for those who had passed was carried out slowly and gently, with the same quiet attention given to every other part of life. Inside a nearby settlement, imagine careful fingers weaving soft plant fibers together, slowly, over and over, forming a fine, even cord. At a site called Dolny Vestanis, archaeologists later found the faint impressions of woven textiles and nets pressed into ancient clay. Proof that alongside stone tools and carved ivory, Ice Age hands were also patient enough to spin thread and weave it gently into something new. Step back now and imagine the wider landscape stretching in every direction, not thick forest, but a vast, open grassland known as the Mammoth Steppe. This unique, cold, dry biome once stretched from what is now Western Europe all the way across Asia and into North America. A single enormous, connected world of grass and snow, supporting the great herds of mammoths, bison, and horses that moved slowly across it for thousands of years. And high above this entire slow, unfolding story, imagine the earth itself, tilting and circling the sun in long, gentle, barely noticeable rhythms. Small shifts in the planet's orbit and tilt, called Milankovitch cycles, slowly changed how much sunlight reached the northern world over tens of thousands of years. A rhythm so slow, so patient, that it quietly shaped the coming and going of entire ice ages, one gentle, cosmic breath at a time. The evening has grown fully dark now. The matriarch's herd rests quietly together. The careful burial has been gently covered with soft snow, and far above, the same patient sky that has always watched this world continues turning, slow and steady, exactly as it always has. The night has settled deep and still now, the fire long since burned down to a soft, orange glow. Somewhere along a frozen coastline, far to the north, imagine gentle waves lapping quietly against a shelf of ice. Woolly seals rest there in the pale moonlight, their thick blubber holding warmth close against the cold water, patient and unhurried, exactly as they have for thousands of years. Not far from the shore, imagine a small group gathered quietly around a carefully built framework of driftwood and whale rib, draped over with stretched hide. These simple, sturdy shelters, built along the coasts where trees grew scarce, show just how resourceful this world required people to be, using whatever the land and sea gently offered, shaping it patiently into warmth and safety. Further inland, imagine wild horses moving in a loose, easy herd across the frozen grass. Ice Age horses, smaller and stockier than the horses we know today, roamed across Europe, Asia, and North America in great numbers, their images appearing again and again on cave walls, painted with quiet, careful strokes by people who watched them for generations, learning their gentle rhythms. Beside a quiet stream, imagine careful hands pressing a soft, damp clay into a small, rounded shape, and then gently setting it near the fire's edge to dry and harden. At a site called Dolny Vestanis, archaeologists later found small fired clay figures, among the oldest ceramic objects ever created by human hands. Shaped slowly, patiently, thousands of years before pottery became common anywhere else in the world. Above the frozen valley, imagine the low, distant howl of a wolf pack drifting through the cold night air. Wolves and early dogs alike moved through this landscape in careful, cooperative packs, hunting together with a quiet, practiced coordination. A patient reminder that survival in this world so often depended on working gently together, rather than alone. Nearby, imagine a small child resting close beside an adult, wrapped snugly in soft fur. Even amid such a demanding world, Ice Age communities cared deeply for their young, teaching them slowly and patiently how to start a fire, how to follow the herds, how to carve a tool with careful, steady hands. Childhood, even here, moved at its own gentle, unhurried pace. Further along the frozen river, imagine a wide, shallow basin cut deep into the land, a proglacial lake formed slowly from the meltwater gathering at the edge of a retreating glacier. These quiet lakes, some vast and some small, rested gently across the landscape wherever the ice slowly pulled back, offering fresh water, fish, and rest to any creature passing through. And high above everything else, imagine the vast ice sheets themselves, so heavy, so immense, that their sheer weight gently pressed the very land beneath them downward, into the Earth's surface. A slow, patient sinking that would take thousands of years after the ice finally melted away to gently rise back up again. Some places still slowly rising, even now, in one of the longest, quietest movements this planet has ever known. The valley rests fully still now. The wolves have grown quiet. The child sleeps soundly, wrapped warm against the cold. And somewhere, deep beneath the ice, the land itself continues its slow, patient work, resting and rising, breath by breath, century by century. Back at the mammoth herd, resting quietly beneath the stars, imagine one old, gentle giant chewing slowly, patiently, on the last tough grasses of the day. A mammoth's molars were enormous, ridged like the sole of a sturdy boot, perfectly built for grinding tough, icy grasses hour after hour. And remarkably, over the course of a long life, a mammoth would grow and wear through as many as 6 sets of these great teeth, one slowly replacing the last, allowing it to keep eating gently, faithfully, for as long as 60 or 70 years. Nearby, imagine the woolly rhinoceros lowering its broad head once more to rest. Its long, curved horn, so often imagined as heavy bone, was in truth made of something softer, tightly compressed hair, called keratin, the very same material found in our own fingernails, layered patiently, year after year, into something strong enough to sweep snow gently aside. Far to the east, in what is now Russia, imagine a burial unlike any other. At a site called Sungir, 2 children rest together, dressed for their final journey in clothing sewn with thousands of small ivory beads, each one carved and polished by patient, careful hands over what must have been many months of quiet work. Even now, tens of thousands of years later, this careful, loving effort still speaks softly of just how deeply this ancient world cared for its own. Back at a smaller fire, imagine 2 hands striking a small piece of flint against a lump of pyrite, again and again, until a bright spark leaps free and catches gently in a soft nest of dry moss. This quiet, patient skill of coaxing fire from stone meant warmth and safety could travel anywhere, any night, as long as careful hands remembered exactly how. Deep within a cave in what is now southern France, imagine a wall lit by flickering torchlight, covered in horses, lions, and rhinoceroses, painted with a skill and grace that feels timeless. This is Chauvet Cave, home to some of the oldest paintings ever discovered, resting quietly, undisturbed, for over 30,000 years before anyone found them again. And if you looked closely at these paintings, you might notice something clever. The artists often used the natural bumps and curves of the rock itself to gently shape the muscles of a horse's shoulder or the curve of a bison's back, giving their work a soft, living depth. Imagine, too, that the small ivory beads carved by careful hands did not always stay close to home. Some traveled remarkably far, passed gently from one group to another, carried across hundreds of miles by people who rarely met yet still, quietly, exchanged small pieces of their lives. A soft thread of connection stretching across this wide, ancient world. And in a cave nearby, imagine a toolmaker studying a long, flat piece of flint with careful, patient eyes, striking it again and again with practiced precision. This technique, later called salutrian by the people who studied it, produced thin, leaf-shaped blades of remarkable skill and beauty. Some so finely worked they seem more like quiet art than simple tools, evidence of just how much care this ancient world placed into even its most practical creations. The fire has burned low again. The mammoth chews its last mouthful of grass and settles into sleep. The small spark from flint and pyrite glows softly in its nest of moss. And somewhere, carried gently between distant camps, a small ivory bead continues its slow journey through the hands of this quiet, patient world. Let's drift a little further into this quiet, ancient world. High above the sleeping valley, the stars turn slowly, patient as ever, while somewhere far across the ocean, in warmer lands the mammoths would never see, their distant cousins rest quietly too. Ancient DNA, studied gently by scientists many thousands of years later, would one day confirm what the shape of a tusk or the curve of an ear already seemed to suggest. That woolly mammoths were close relatives of the Asian elephants still living today, 2 branches of the same soft, patient family tree. Back in the cave, imagine torchlight flickering once more across a painted wall, illuminating a small herd of spotted horses. For a long time, some wondered if these painted spots were simply imagination, until scientists studying ancient horse DNA found that spotted coats truly did exist among Ice Age horses, meaning the artists, so long ago, had simply and carefully painted exactly what they saw. Nearby, imagine careful hands fitting a sharp stone point to the end of a wooden shaft, binding it firmly with a wrap of soft sinew and warm, sticky resin. Every part of this quiet process mattered. The shape of the stone, the strength of the binding, the balance of the shaft. Small details attended to patiently, that meant the difference between a successful hunt and a long, hungry night. Let your mind drift now toward the cold, quiet stretch of Beringia once more. Not simply a bridge quickly crossed, but a place where, according to careful genetic study, certain groups of people may have paused and settled for thousands of years before ever continuing onward into the Americas. A long, patient rest in a cold, quiet land, long before the final steps of that ancient journey were ever taken. As the Ice Age slowly wound toward its end, imagine that the changing climate was not the only quiet pressure upon the great herds. Skilled, patient human hunters, spread now across nearly every corner of the world, may have also placed a slow, steady strain on populations of mammoths, giant sloths, and other massive creatures already struggling to adapt. Two forces, climate and hunting, moving gently together toward the same slow ending. Back at the fire, imagine hands twisting together long, thin strands of sinew, taken carefully from along an animal's back into strong, even cordage. This natural thread, remarkably strong for its size, was used to bind spear points, stitch clothing, and tie together the very shelters that kept this ancient world warm. A small, quiet material, holding so much of daily life together. If you looked closely at certain cave paintings, you might notice something curious. A bison or a horse painted with extra legs, overlapping gently across one another. Rather than a mistake, many now believe this was an ancient artist's careful attempt to capture motion itself, showing a single animal walking or running through several quiet moments at once. A technique for suggesting movement, long before film or animation ever existed. And beside the human hunters moving quietly across the snow, imagine a small group of dogs trotting steadily alongside them, noses low, ears alert. Working together, dogs may have helped track wounded prey across long distances and helped corner larger animals long enough for hunters to approach safely. An early partnership built slowly on trust that continues in its own quiet way even now. The night is deep and still once more. The painted horses rest quietly on the cave wall. The sinew cordage lies coiled beside the fire, and somewhere out on the frozen plain, a dog and a hunter walk on together, side by side, exactly as they have for thousands of quiet years. Above the sleeping valley, imagine the vast, distant edges of the world's great ice sheets, resting heavily over entire continents. In North America, this enormous mass was called the Laurentide Ice Sheet, stretching from the Arctic down across what is now Canada and the northern United States. Across the ocean, the Fennoscandian ice sheet rested just as heavily over what is now Scandinavia and much of northern Europe. Two great, quiet giants of ice, resting patiently on opposite sides of the world, shaping the land beneath them ever so slowly. Back near the herd, imagine scientists many thousands of years later, gently examining the frozen, perfectly preserved stomach of a mammoth found deep in the permafrost. Inside, resting undisturbed since the Ice Age itself, they would find traces of grasses, sedges, and small flowering herbs. the mammoth's very last meal, held safely in careful, frozen stillness until the whole story could finally be read again. Nearby, imagine an old cave bear settling into its long winter sleep, its joints aching quietly with the same kind of wear and arthritis we sometimes feel ourselves. Even the largest, strongest creatures of this ancient world carried their own quiet burdens, their bones telling gentle stories of long, difficult lives, carried patiently from one season to the next. Let your mind drift now to a soft, muddy lakeshore in what is now New Mexico, in North America. Preserved gently in the ancient mud small human footprints, some belonging to children walking beside their families, rest undisturbed for over 20,000 years, among the oldest clear evidence yet found of humans walking this part of the world during the Ice Age. Back near the coast, imagine small, pale shell ornaments, gathered gently from the shoreline, resting now around the neck of someone living hundreds of miles inland. Carried carefully from one group to another, traded quietly hand to hand across long distances, these small shells reveal just how far and how gently this ancient world stayed connected. Return once more to the mammoth herd, resting together in the pale moonlight. A mother mammoth carries her calf for nearly 22 months before it is finally born, longer than almost any other creature alive today, save for her own distant elephant cousins. A long, slow, patient wait, matched only by the patience of the world she is bringing her calf into. Far to the north in the frozen ground of Siberia, imagine two small cave lion cubs resting closely together, perfectly preserved by the permafrost for over 40,000 years. Found still soft, their fur and whiskers intact, they rest now as one of the gentlest, most complete glimpses ever found into this ancient, frozen world. Two small creatures, forever curled together in quiet, peaceful sleep. And finally, imagine one more mammoth, moving slowly through a stand of bare winter trees, using its long tusks to gently strip away bark and to sweep aside heavy snow in search of food beneath. Every part of this great creature, down to the curve of its tusks, was shaped patiently by this cold, demanding world. One more small, quiet example of just how gently life learned to continue, even here. The night rests fully still now. The old cave bear sleeps on. The small footprints remain quiet in the mud, and somewhere, deep in the frozen ground, two small cave lion cubs continue their long, peaceful rest, exactly as they have for 40,000 years. Let's drift once more, deeper still, into this quiet, ancient world, for the final stretch of our long, slow journey together. Far back before the woolly mammoths we've walked beside tonight, imagine an even larger ancestor moving across an older stretch of the same frozen world. The steppe mammoth, taller and heavier than its woolly descendants, roamed the earth hundreds of thousands of years earlier. A slow, patient beginning to the long family story we've followed through this entire night. Across the plains of what is now North America, imagine a great cat resting low in tall frozen grass. The American lion, larger even than the lions of Africa today, moving with quiet, patient power through a landscape it shared with mammoths, camels, and horses alike. Not far from it, imagine a heavier, more powerful kind of wolf moving through the shadows. The dire wolf, thicker boned and stronger jawed than the gray wolves we know now, hunting in patient, coordinated packs across the same wide grasslands. Further along, imagine a tall, gentle shape picking its way through the frost. Camelops, an Ice Age camel native to North America, its soft, padded feet suited perfectly to the open, dry plains it called home, long before camels became creatures we associate only with distant deserts. Traveling further south now, all the way down into what is now South America, imagine an enormous armored creature resting low to the ground. Glyptodon, a distant relative of the armadillo, its back covered in a thick, dome-shaped shell as large as a small car, moving slowly and calmly, safe within its own quiet fortress. Nearby in southern Chile, imagine a small group of people settling quietly beside a gentle stream, leaving behind footprints, tools, and the remains of a simple meal. This site, known today as Monte Verde, rests among the oldest confirmed traces of humans anywhere in the Americas. A soft, quiet reminder of just how far and how patiently people spread across this ancient world. Back near the mammoth herd, imagine scientists many years later studying an old healed wound resting quietly in a mammoth's rib. Careful examination would reveal it as the mark of a spear, thrown long ago and survived. Clear, direct evidence of the careful, patient hunts that so often unfolded across this cold and demanding world. Deep within a painted cave, imagine a soft, glassy layer slowly forming over the paintings themselves. A thin crust of calcite, deposited so slowly, drop by mineral drop over thousands of years, that it gently sealed the paintings beneath it, protecting them, and later allowing scientists to measure their careful, patient age with remarkable precision. Nearby, imagine Neanderthal hands working with small, dark lumps of manganese dioxide, perhaps ground into powder for its rich, dark color, and perhaps, some now believe, used carefully to help kindle a flame. One more small, thoughtful skill practiced quietly by this ancient relative of ours. Far across the sea in what is now Ireland, imagine the last of the great Irish elk moving slowly through a landscape already beginning to warm and change, surviving there until as recently as 7,700 years ago. Long after the deepest cold of the Ice Age had already passed, one more soft, lingering echo fading slowly into a warmer world. Back at a quiet campsite, imagine careful hands shaping a long piece of antler, drilling a single smooth hole through one end. These mysterious tools, which researchers later named batons de commandement, may have served as tools for straightening wooden spear shafts, or perhaps held some quieter, ceremonial purpose we may never fully know. A small, patient mystery, resting gently across time. Nearby, imagine a dog resting closely beside a human companion, buried together with quiet care at a site now called Bon Ober Castle, one of the oldest confirmed burials of a domesticated dog together with its human family, a soft, lasting proof of the bond we began imagining together earlier tonight. Let your mind travel now, far across the world, to a quiet limestone cave on the island of Sulawesi, in what is now Indonesia. There, painted figures of hunters and animals rest on the stone, dated to over 44,000 years old. Proof that this same quiet, patient urge to create, to paint, to remember, rose gently in many corners of the world at once, not just one. Back in Europe, imagine early modern humans resting beside a rock shelter in what is now France, a place later named Cro-Magnon. This name would come to represent an entire generation of early humans, thoughtful and capable, living gently through the same Ice Age world we've walked through together tonight. As the ice slowly retreated near the end of this long winter, imagine wide stretches of low coastal land slipping gently beneath the rising sea, as melting ice sheets fed the oceans once more. Entire settlements, once resting safely along ancient coastlines, now rest quietly beneath the waves, patient and hidden, waiting for the sea to someday, gently, reveal them again. Return once more for a final moment to the mammoths resting together in the pale moonlight. Some researchers now believe these gentle giants, like elephants today, may have communicated across long distances using deep, low-frequency sounds, far below what human ears could ever hope to hear. A quiet, invisible conversation carried gently across miles of open snow. And if you looked closely at the careful paintings on so many cave walls, you might notice mammoths depicted with a soft, rounded hump resting high on their backs, just behind the head. Not muscle, but fat, stored patiently through summer to be gently drawn upon through the long, hard winter. Exactly the way this entire world seemed to store its strength, slowly, for when it was needed most. Finally, imagine the wild horses that once roamed so freely across the Americas, slowly disappearing as the Ice Age ended, only to return again, many thousands of years later, brought gently back across the ocean by different hands entirely. A quiet, unexpected turn in a story that never really stopped unfolding. The ice has retreated now. The mammoths and the great cats and the gentle giant sloths have slipped quietly into memory, resting now only in frozen ground, painted stone, and careful stories like this one. But look closely, and their soft traces remain all around us still. In the elephants that walk today, in the dogs curled beside us, in the quiet art we still feel compelled to make by firelight, in the very land beneath our feet, still slowly, patiently rising, breath by breath, from the weight of ice that rested there so long ago. About 11,700 years ago, this long winter finally, gently ended, and the world eased into the warmer age we still call home today, an age called the Holocene, resting quietly atop everything that came before it, including this whole long, patient story we've walked through together tonight. The valley is still now, the fire has gone dark, the snow rests softly under a sky slowly beginning to lighten. And you can rest now too. Thank you for watching till the end. If you'd like more videos like this, check out the channel and consider subscribing. Good night.